Hello everyone and welcome back to English with Malik. Well, today's lesson is an explanation, a detailed explanation of modal verbs, modal auxiliary verbs as we call them, or modals or modal verbs. In the previous lesson, I told you what are the basic modal verbs and what are the phrasal modal verbs. Today we are going to study a few modal verbs and see what are they used for. I mean, there are a little explanation of them, and also some examples we'll see. Okay, so the very first modal verb that we are going to study today is may. Okay, may has three possible definitions or explanations or usage as we call them. The very first is may is used for polite request. Okay, but it is only used with I or we. For example, may I borrow your pen? May I come in? May I use your calculator? May I come tomorrow for some explanation? May I leave this room? So it is used for a polite request. The second is it is used for formal permission. Okay, it's a formal permission. So a boss can say to his employees that you may leave the room. Okay, that's a formal permission which is given. There's a meeting of boss and employee. A lot of people are sitting. When the meeting is over, everybody is expecting that the meeting will be formally closed by the boss, and when he says you may leave the room, then everybody would stand up and leave the room. The third is less than 50% possibility or probability. If there is a less than 50% possibility of something, we will use may. Sometimes we also say that it could be 50 or a little less than 50. For example, it may rain tomorrow. If there is a prediction of, let's say, 50 or around 50 or a little less than 50%, then it would go for this expression. The second model is might. Okay, there are two usages that we have of might. The first is, again, it's a less than 50% certainty or possibility. Around 45 or 40% possibility. It's a little, might is a little less than may. Okay, so again, it is the attitude of the speaker. Like when I explained models, I told you that models are used to express attitude, the speaker's attitude. And certainly there is a certain situation, certain circumstances in which the speaker is using them. So when there is a less possibility than may, we will go for might. Okay, an example is it might rain tomorrow. So there is a less possibility, 45% or 40%. Okay, the possibility that we have, therefore we are using it. The second is it is also a polite request. Okay, so like, might I use your calculator? Might I borrow your pen? Any permission or request that you want to make, you'll use might for that. The third is should. Okay, there are two possible usages of should. The first is it is an advisability. Okay, you are giving advice to somebody, or you are expressing an advice for yourself as well. For instance, we say you should study tonight. Okay, that is an advice I'm giving you. Or if, for example, you are not feeling well, I might say you should see a doctor. Okay, or for instance, if you are not spending your time properly into the studies or into your work, I might say you should not spend or you should not waste your time. It is a negative expression, but again there is an advisability. The second is it's a 90% certainty. There are expectations, we are expecting, and it's a 90% expectation that we have for you, therefore we'll use should. An expression is you should do well on test. Probably I am a parent, and as a parent I am asking my son or daughter, or I'm expecting from my son or daughter that they should do well on the test. Okay, the next model is ought to. Ought to is actually about advisability. Like in the previous one, should is also talking about advisability, so ought to is also talking about advisability. But there is a little difference. We say that ought to is a bit formal expression than should. We use should for everyday usage, for journal expression, but ought to is when you want to emphasize a little on your advisability. So we might say you ought to practice English. When I'm saying you ought to practice English, I'm especially emphasizing on the idea. The second is it's also a 90% certainty. Expectations are for the future. So we might say you ought to use library. Again, it's not a general advice, but it is a special advice, a little emphasis that I'm doing that when you use the library, this would be very beneficial for you. Then we have had better. Okay, had better is also an advisability, but there is a difference. It is an advisability with threat of bad result. Okay, in should and ought to, there may not be a threat, but when you say had better, there is a threat. If you don't do it, there will be some bad consequence. So we say you had better be on time or we will live without you. So there is a threat that is coming with had better in the advisability manner. So keep in your mind. Again, I would say it's the attitude. It's why am I using? What field do I have? So if I'm just giving a general advice, I might use should. If it is a formal advice, I will use ought to. But if it is an advice but with a threat of a bad result, I would go for had better. Then we have be supposed to. Okay, be supposed to has like two usages. It is actually an expectation. Okay, an expectation that I have for present. Like I say, class is supposed to begin at 10. Okay, or I might say you are supposed to be on time. Okay, you are supposed to complete your work. Okay, you are supposed to be very active and vigilant in your work. So these are like general expectations that we have from an individual, and therefore we are saying that he or she is supposed to do such a thing. Then used to, supposed to is also used for unfulfilled expectations in the past, but it's not with the present, but it's with the past. For example, class was supposed to begin at 10, but it didn't begin until 10:15. So this is an expression which is saying that there was some expectation in the past, but it didn't work out, and therefore we are using it with past expression. Okay, so in this today's lesson, we've seen that there are 6 models that we talked about, and all these 6 are really important. We talked about may and might and should and ought to, had better, and be supposed to. Please study them, see them, practice them, and if there are any questions, any comments that you would like to make, do make in the video. I will make another of the video with the same sequence. There will be some more model work that we'll discuss in the next video. Until then, bye.